Heather, thank you so much for inviting us here today. I can't wait to walk people through this space because it is such a treat. It's just like being on vacation every day, I imagine.
Yes. No, that was definitely the feeling that we wanted to evoke back here is, tranquil, private, a little bit, too much, a little jungly. So that's what we really wanted. Bought the house in 2009 and then really didn't start to garden until about 2010, and everything was very piecemeal. I hadn't really gardened before I bought the house, so I didn't really know what I was doing. I lived in a rental where I did like vegetable beds and, plopped some petunias in the ground. So this was really my first foray into trying to actually like landscape around a house.
Did you know that you were going to do that when you moved into the garden? Was that an aspiration, or did you just kind of happen?
I definitely, once I got those veggie beds, I was like, oh, this is the thing I want to do.
Nice.
I want to garden.
So you knew.
Yes. And so that was specifically something I was looking for when I was looking for a house, was that I wanted as big of a property as we could find in my price range so that I could garden.
Nice. You had moved into the space, you had done some vegetable gardening in the past and really had gotten your hands in the dirt and said, more. How did you start this process here? Were there any initial inspirations, or did you grow into this vibe that you're creating, or were you always headed that way?
No, I really did not know what I was doing. And so I read a lot of blogs. And then I was working in an academic library, so I basically checked out every single gardening book they had. And initially I was like, oh, I'm just going to do natives. I'm going to do all natives. And so I got a lot of plants through the backyard habitat, program, which I do still have a lot of those here. Slowly started gravitating in different areas. I realized that like there's too many plants that you can't hem yourself in with just natives. And then my husband said, oh, we should do a tropical garden. And I was like adamant that I did not want a theme garden. But he kind of got his way in the end. I just gradually sort of came around to it.
About how long ago was that kind of change of focus or focus, like where you focused in on creating more of this tropical? Was that like
probably
10 years ago?
10 years ago? We had our structure built, and that really, really at that point you can't.
Yeah, that's very direct.
Do like an Asian style garden or anything with that. It really kind of dictated how it was going to look back here. And then I fell in love with palm trees, and that was sort of like falling off a cliff as far as like embracing the more tropical.
Yep. You have a number of different plants that you collect, and we'll kind of look more closely at some of the real beauties that you have here. But I've noticed a collection of your palms that you've talked about, and a collection of lilies. Are there any other groups of plants that you're really interested in that you want to make sure we see?
I love ferns. I love fuchsias. I love Mahonia.
Well, it's a beautiful collection of plants, all wonderfully grown, and I can't wait to walk around with you and look at some of these things more closely. Look at that. So beautiful and so inviting and looks so comfortable. Do you guys spend a lot of time out here in the different parts of the day?
We eat dinner out here every night. We spend as much time as possible back here, so we really wanted it to be cozy and private.
Yeah, you accomplished that like in spades. Really wonderful. What's your lot size? 50?
We're on 5,700. The standard Portland lot is 5,000.
Yeah,
so we have like a little extra.
A little bit more. Mm-hmm.
Would love more, but
Of course. Of course. Yeah, so these beds, I'm back here and I'm feeling very hugged by the garden. It feels lush. And I'm also, at the same time, noticing that these beds aren't very deep.
Right.
So how did you pull that off? I mean, do you have some strategies or things that you've done that you think worked to?
Anything that worked back here was an accident. I'm not a planner.
I don't believe it.
I didn't garden before. I moved here, and if I could go back again, I'd probably design this backspace differently, but we kind of did what we could. And there used to be, where this patio is, there was a big cement slab. And so that sort of dictated how deep these beds were going to be. And then we had that torn up, and then we put a different one in. So it's been real haphazard and sort of organic as far as, how things have progressed.
But you clearly chose some plants for creating an evergreen boundary. Like I'm noticing some plants that we've talked about on the channel before. This is Osmanthus San Jose, I imagine.
Yep.
Really nice one, and such a effective and easy to grow plant for creating privacy and division of space in a narrow bed like this.
Yes.
You haven't had to fight it, have you, in terms of pruning or keeping it in bounds?
Nope. I do like to take cuttings from it because they look great in winter wreaths.
Oh, nice.
So it's great for that. But initially, our next door neighbors had a huge Doug fir. And so we had the double combo of dry shade, but then also searing afternoon sun. And
That's a difficult situation.
Yeah. So I called Zara and they said, oh, you should do an osmanthus. And then also you have a great evergreen screen, as everyone has neighbors right on top of them.
Is this palm a different variety?
They're all Trachycarpus. I don't know which ones are the waggies and which ones are the fortunei. I think they're all kind of mutts of the two.
Yep.
So
are these some of those you talked about? Some of them you installed as more specimen size, bigger plants, and other ones you started with younger plants?
These two are a great example. The one on the right, I planted where it had 2 feet of trunk. And that one went in probably 3 years ago, and it has shot up. It's got a thicker trunk. It just looks better. It's retaining more of its lower canopy. And then this one on the left, we bought at 6 feet because it's a pathway. We couldn't have it do this. We needed people to be able to pass through, and it has really struggled. It just hasn't looked as good. It's finally, I think, settling in and starting to look a little bit better. Now we're fertilizing it, things like that.
So that one you bought higher so that this path would work.
Correct.
And then once you don't have any foliage on a portion of the trunk, it doesn't refoliate there. Right. And so this one, you could train it that way over time, or this one, if you decide you want to lift that canopy more, that's something that you'll do by removing some of those lower fronds.
Right. And I try to let them go as long as possible because I know it feeds the tree.
Okay.
So they really encourage you, if you do want to feed the tree, to not cut off those lower fronds, even though they don't look so hot right now.
And then you had another one over here where you have a lot of really smart plant friends, don't you?
Yes, for sure.
and some garden visitors. And it's always nice to have somebody really smart come to your garden and notice things. And you changed some of your care pattern with the palms recently, right?
Right. We have 2 Trachycarpus in particular that look really bad. And a friend came in and clocked immediately that we have a manganese deficiency. So purchased fertilizer spikes. So this one is being given a year to recover. And if it doesn't, then we'll probably replace it.
Right. Keep up or get out, mister.
But in the meantime, we bought fertilizer spikes for all of the rest of the palms, and they are just growing by leaps and bounds. They look so much better, so much happier. So going forward, I'm going to be really good about that once a year, putting those fertilizer spikes in.
Yeah, they are. I mean, the mix of plants back here really give a sense of place, and it gives a sense of other place. Core plants, which is a Tetrapanax.
Tetrapanax, yep.
A hardy banana, which is Musa basjoo.
Yep.
And these palms that we've already talked about. All of those have that real exotic vibe, and all of them are perfectly hardy here in Portland.
Yes.
Sometimes people will gravitate towards pushing zonal boundaries to get that look, and they're overlooking some plants that are perfectly hardy that might help them get that look. Are there any that we haven't keyed on that might
I don't know if anyone else would agree with this, but I feel like fuchsias look great under palm trees. And I feel like
Absolutely.
flowers are that, when you go to a tropical place, there are a ton of flowers. And as I said, I'm a flower floozy, so that, gels well.
And they
I
just
grew,
bloom for an eternity.
yes, they are the longest blooming flowers. I'm not good about fertilizing them, and yet they've been really great for me. Lilies. I also really like Mahonia. I feel like that one is really carefree and easy, and they fit right in with that tropical vibe.
Mm-hmm. And I'm looking around, and I was like, she's got to have a Fatsia. But so you don't rely on that one very much for that big, exotic, bold foliage
I
look.
do have a Fatsia back there.
Mm-hmm.
I have another Fatsia buried in another bed. And we had one just got really big and kind of leggy, and it would get burnt every time that we got a really bad, heat wave. But Fatsia is a great choice.
Yeah, that's it. And some of the big hostas with really enormous leaves give that kind of exotic vibe. And you mentioned the fuchsias, and what I think they can do so well is, one, they give us that flower power forever and ever and ever. And they also are a nice textural contrast to some of the bold foliage choices.
Yes.
Do you grow abutilons for that?
I don't grow any abutilons. I don't like how kind of leggy they get. So I just haven't grown them yet. The second that I say I don't like something, I fall in love with it. So,
but we won't hold you to it. Yeah. Now we're underneath the structure, which we will take a look at here in a second. But we're underneath the structure, and the growing conditions have really changed. We're now in that kind of shady zone.
Yes. Yeah, so we have Daphne, ferns, this Himalayan fern that's doing maybe a little too well. It's kind of choking everything out.
It goes where it wants to go.
Yeah. And Schefflera, love, that's Arisaema ringens. And then a lot of fuchsias tucked in where I can get them.
This is a gorgeous fern. It looks...
That one is Woodwardia orientalis.
Yes, I picked that one up. I have Woodwardia
Unagamata.
Thank you for pronouncing that and not making me do it. And I love that one very much, but
yes.
I just picked up this one.
I have 4 different Woodwardia, and they're all great. So, but they're big.
Yeah. These need some consistent moisture, don't they?
Yes.
Yeah. Yep. Schefflera delavei is an interesting one to me. There's so much leaf variability.
Yes. And this one has done really poorly for me. It just struggles. You can see there's a dead stem over here that I have yet to cut back.
Yeah. I have a similar situation. One, my foliage leaf shape, I don't have the notches. They're just different shape. And I learned from a smart gardener that there's just a lot of genetic variability. You mentioned Mahonia is one of the plants that kind of contribute to that, exotic vibe with that foliage. It can definitely read that way. This is a beauty.
That one is, I think that one's Winter Sun, which is a little bit harder to find than like Charity, but it's got a bluer tone on the new growth.
Yeah.
That's really nice.
Yeah.
So.
That's what I'm noticing is how beautiful and blue it is. Now, same plant in the back, right?
Correct.
Okay, so you're working on maybe rehabbing it, bringing the plant down a little bit?
This was a real haphazard before I was leaving town. I needed to get the foliage down because it was actually growing into the structure. And we don't want to create sort of on-ramps for rodents and things like that.
No.
So that was a real last minute, how much can I get in the green bin? And that's how much I could get. So
Cool.
that one's going to be pruned back really hard or maybe removed.
So I was in a different garden, and she was little, and she did a similar pruning on a Mahonia, basically very, very, very close cousin to this, so I think it would transfer. And I hadn't, in my own garden, done cuts like this. And so I wasn't sure whether you could get away with it and what would happen. Hers is pushing growth out of these stobs.
Yep.
So maybe you already knew that, but that was a lesson for me to actually see it in person that gave me a lot more confidence that if I needed to rehabilitate one of my Mahonias like this, that I could.
I think you could almost cut it down to the ground and it would be fine.
I know.
Yeah, they are very vigorous. They will totally refoliate from where you cut them, so they're pretty forgiving.
Good.
So
now this is an interesting one to me. I'm reading it as Mahonia gracilis, but it's not quite like that. What am I seeing?
It is a cross between gracilis and something else. They're unsure. I saw it at the Elizabeth Miller Garden in Seattle, Washington, and fell in love with it. And I ended up emailing Richie Steffens and saying, you know, did you ever give cuttings to anyone? And he said, oh, contact Far Reaches. And they dug around in a greenhouse and we're like, oh, sure enough, like, you know, it was in a back corner, and was able to purchase, I think I have 3 of them, but it's beautiful. It stays smaller. It's sharp, but not as brutal as some of the larger crosses.
Do we get the white underside?
Nope.
Still beautiful, wonderful.
Yes, it's one of my favorites. And again, I think it just looks wonderful with palms and fuchsia.
Yeah,
I think that's a winning combo.
Yeah. You think? I think so too. Nice. Now that we're talking about Mahonias, I'm seeing them everywhere. That's a nice one in terms of adding some lifts, some overhead division of space between you and your neighbor. Not always trees that we do that with, is it?
Yep.
Oh, I'm gonna try and see if I can capture these pendulous bloom stalks up there. This is a really unusual plant. Tell me again what that is.
That is Datica cannabina, so false hemp. It is, all of that growth is from 1 year. So I cut it back completely to the ground every winter, and all of that growth is, you know, one season. I don't give it any water, doesn't get fertilized. I truss it up. I sort of give it a corset and tie it to the fence so that it doesn't.
Oh, otherwise it would lean all the way in here, wouldn't it?
But wonderful, you know, just architectural plant. It's very cool.
Yeah, and that downward draping flow it's like a waterfall.
Yeah. And people say that this one will seed, but it has never produced a seedling for me. That's one of my favorite cannas.
It's so refined.
Yeah.
Very, very delicate.
And that one is Canna Ehemannii. I get it from old, oh gosh, what are they called? It's a canna grower. It's the only canna that they sell. And it has not been super long-lived in my garden. I think it's probably a little bit more marginal as far as zones go, but it's worth buying. Old House Gardens, that's what it's called.
Okay, So that's mail order, must be.
Correct.
Right? Yeah. That means that anybody that's watching can have that canna.
Yes, and you should.
So we're seeing more of your lily collection, and what's kind of evident in the ones that we've kind of seen in this part of the tour is you've got a sequence of blooms. Some you can tell have been blooming for a longer period of time. The other ones are kind of coming on. So
And I would say that's not on purpose, but just, again, lack of impulse control. So I just keep buying more lilies.
So this bed is giving me all sorts of signals that it's getting plenty of shade. We've got some classics in here. We've got the Sarcocoa for fragrance. Nice.
Amazing winter fragrance. And this bed's a mess. It's just every plant is basically a thug. So
well, then they can duke it out. This one's, do you know this? Is this, which one is this?
It's
this
supposed to be a Trachycarpus Wagnerianus.
Yeah. That's what I would have guessed.
Yep.
In terms of like, it just has a certain, the how do you say, Wagnerianus?
Oh, I have no idea.
Okay.
What's been...
Anyways, that one, the one that starts with
waggy
W,
palms.
waggies, yes, that's what people call them. The fronds have they're very architecturally, I think, stronger. I mean, they're all nice, but this one, a much more defined palm.
It's like jazz hands.
Uh-huh.
That's what we call that. But yeah, I like both of them. They're all good palms.
They're all good.
And we do have, you can barely see it, but there is a sable palm planted deep down there.
Let's see if I can find it here without going out of focus.
They are really slow growing. So,
oh, I can now see it a little bit more. But
yeah.
What I'm really noticing is my favorite fern. This one is just so gorgeous, that coloring. So which one is this?
This one is Woodwardia unigamata, or however you pronounce it.
I think you did well. I'm going to pronounce it that way now.
The jeweled chain fern, I think, is what the common name is on that one.
You can see why, huh?
Yeah. And I think all Woodwardias are good Woodwardias, but this one is really special.
Yeah, it's my absolute favorite. I've found in some client gardens that I've tried to establish it, it's either goes or doesn't. And if it does, even if it does go, really quite slow.
Yeah.
Did these take a while, or did they? I mean, did you notice anything in terms of their?
I feel like that one got a bit big pretty early, or pretty fast.
Good. Okay.
So,
yeah, well, you had the right conditions for it.
Yep. And my podophyllums get a little bit too much sun. You'll see they're kind of burnt.
Yeah.
But this Schefflera has done fantastically.
And do you know which one this is?
It is Taiwaniana.
Yeah.
And it's a named cultivar from the Hinckley collection, I think.
Uh-huh.
So
if we got them about the same time, I would guess. I got the one that it's the Schefflera Yuan Shan.
Yep, that's what this one is.
Yeah. So that one is what I know for sure I've got. And we probably got them at about the same time.
Yeah. Yeah, I had a friend who found them and put out the call, on social media.
Because, when they first came out, they were like gold. And not only a little costly, but hard to find, which those things usually go hand in hand.
Yeah, I think I hopped in my car and ran to Beaverton to get them.
Oh, my God. Yeah. Well, I guess we haven't talked about the structure yet. I think we need to say that's kind of, that was a big deal deciding to do that, wasn't it?
Yes. We had toyed with the idea of building our own little platform deck, and some sort of shade structure. And then my husband said, I think we should actually have it do, let's survive. So we hired bamboo craftsmen in North Portland. And Troy came out and we said we wanted it to look like old Hawaii. And so this is what he came up with.
Yep. He does such beautiful work. And this is right up his alley.
Yep. And we love it. We eat dinner under here every night, and it's
fantastic.
just a great, entertaining space. And it's a wonderful respite from the heat of the day. I wanted that swing. My husband thought that it was a silly idea, and we live in it now.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, and not only is it a cool place in summer, but it really extends. I mean, you get out in the garden earlier in the year and stay later, don't you? Because protection from weather.
Nice to have that flex space.
Yep. It's an extension of your home now. You have an extra room. And if you work at home, I'd be sitting out there working.
We have tried that, and it is very distracting. So.
Well, it's nice to have the option.
Yes.
Such a beautiful space and such attention to detail. The plantings are luscious, they're gorgeous, and all of that. But, the other things that make a garden are, the materials and the places for people.
Yes, and I do feel like because the garden is a little chaotic, it's a little jungly, having this strong, hardscape sort of makes it feel a little more cohesive and less crazy.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I like the simplicity of your furniture. Mm-hmm. It's just really beautiful back here and spot on.
We really wanted couches with arms that were flat and big enough that you could put a drink
Right.
there or, plate of food.
Yeah, because actually you don't really absolutely need side tables as much. They're nice to have, but
Right.
they're not essential.
But we like to entertain, so we want to make sure people are comfortable, that there's places to sit.
I'm noticing and appreciating your container collection as well. You've got some really beautiful pieces and they all look great together, but they're, they match, but they're not matchy-matchy, right?
Trying to keep them in the same color family so that they, look somewhat planned, but it's hard, and sometimes you just need a pot because you bought too many plants, so
Yeah.
just got to go get another one.
Yeah, well, there's some really beautiful ones, and just well placed in terms of, this is obviously a very special pot, and you've put it in a, pride of place spot.
Yep.
Really can show those, and nice flanking the two sides of the.
Yeah, those were a birthday gift from my mother.
Aw,
so
that's sweet. Flanking the entrance to the island
pavilion. Yes.
The island pavilion. Yeah, that's gorgeous. And right down to the details of, you just keep looking, you keep drilling down, and, your seat cushions match. Everything is just feels put together but not fussy. It's really beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah, my mother-in-law sewed the cushion for the swing with fabric that we picked up in Hawaii.
Oh, that's nice. That's nice. And right down to the details of, the underside of this structure. And looks like you've got some lighting. Must be beautiful in here at night.
Yes, it's really, really cozy, and lighting is very important to my husband, so he's spent a lot of time and mental energy on how to get it right.
So maybe because it's going to probably show up in some of the videos possibly, and people might ask about it. These are related to your lighting system, aren't they?
Yes, we have rope lights, and we also have a misting system. So when it gets really hot, I still want to eat outside, but I am a heat wimp. So we can turn on the misting system, cools everything down, gives the plants a little bath. And
Nice.
then we also have the lighting that's run along the same line.
I like the mix. You've got a mix of materials on the ground plane, beautiful bluestone and gravel. So the little bit of both. What was your thinking on, or how did you go through your selection process in terms of how to work the ground plane?
Well, the raised beds were built first, and I really just went to Oregon Decorative Rock, and a kid was like, "This rock's good," and so that was really how that choice was made.
Good. So
And
did you guys build this?
Yes.
Oh,
so the
good
raised
for you.
beds. That's what, and you can tell. Yeah, so I built all of those. Kind of, would get paid and then go buy $100 worth of rock and did everything sort of piecemeal.
I love it.
And then when we had the structure built, we actually had a pro come in and do the pathways, and he picked out rock that would, kind of mix with the existing stone that we had.
Nice. It looks like some sort of bluestone.
I think so.
Yeah, nicely done. Nice quality work. You mortared over here.
Yep. Yeah, that's polymeric sand. So
oh, okay.
it does need to be redone periodically.
Yeah.
But initially they had just put sand in the joints, and we were getting a lot of, seedlings planted, popping up, and so my husband installed the polymeric sand.
Yeah, so just to be clear, I just misspoke and I saw it as mortared, and it's not. Polymeric sand is a more semi-permanent weed suppression system that people use, and it looks great. It looks like it's really doing the job.
Yep.
And then this patio over here is same materials, slightly different style.
Yep.
We've got wider joints in terms of permeability.
Yes, we wanted, the hope was that, keeping everything freely draining. We don't want to create a lake out here.
from a water management standpoint, you've taken some really important steps. You have a lot of stone areas and soil areas, so your rainwater or water that you apply, pretty much stays on site. It looks like.
Yep, everything stays on site, and we're very lucky. We are sited in a place that can really accommodate rain gardens. We don't live on a hill, and so we wanted to keep all of it on site if we could. So we have rain gardens sort of stashed all over the garden. There's a rain chain over off of the island pavilion, and that's a rain garden. And then we also have one on the back of the house that catches the lion's share of the rainwater that we get.
Oh, okay. Great. I'm glad I asked about that. It's more extensive than I thought.
Yeah.
I'm not sure this planting bed was here last time I was here. Is that a newer installation?
That is brand new. We really wanted to create an opportunity for canopy above, and so really wanted one of those big leaf magnolias, and so made this new bed, which looks a little silly now, but once it grows in should look better. So we will have this big, beautiful, large-leafed magnolia coming out of that center bed, and then hopefully lots of lushness underneath.
I can see that. I can see your vision. And tell me again what this is, magnolia?
Macrophylla, Asii. There are bigger versions. This is a more petite cultivar of that magnolia, and it should, top out at 20 feet instead of 50.
So at some point it will go up above the pavilion a little bit.
That is the hope. And then, it creates more of a feeling of, garden rooms, so that the seating area will have more shade.
Yeah.
And will be a little bit more private.
You will definitely have a more division of space, room-like feel. Mm-hmm. But it's wonderful now. Yeah, thinking about those in small, we both garden in very small spaces, so really kind of thinking about how it is to live in a space day to day. That's of course paramount. Mm-hmm. But figuring out also how to make your space comfortable and welcoming for larger groups is nice as well. And you have done that marvelously.
Thank you. We like entertaining.
Well, that was fun. Thank you so much for taking us around and spending so much time with us and sharing your beautiful space.
You are welcome anytime, and you should come back at night and we'll have cocktails and you can experience the garden when all the night lights are lit. And so yeah, we have lights and torches, and it's really fun here at night. So.
Nice. Well, we'll come back and see the island pavilion.
Yes. This is the garden of Beezus Marie.